selection of included audiobooks, Audible originals, and podcasts. You can download or stream their included titles all you want. You can discover exclusive Audible originals from top celebrities, renowned experts, and exciting new voices in audio. As an Audible member, you can choose one title from their catalog every single month, and it is yours to keep in your library forever. The Audible app makes it really easy to listen anytime you want, whether you're working out or on your commute to work or taking a walk. I love reading and I love books, but I don't always have time to be reading a physical copy of a book, and that's why I love listening to audiobooks, especially when I know I have a long drive ahead of me. So far this year, I've also been focusing a lot on productivity and wellness, and Audible has a ton of materials and titles for exactly that, including self-guided meditation, self-help books, podcasts that kind of center around things like that, and I have been enjoying those so much. Right now, I'm listening to Behave by Robert Sapolsky, which is a non-fiction book that is highly recommended, and it's about human behavior and how the chemicals in our brain can affect every decision that we make. And I'm really enjoying it so far, and I just really like listening to non-fiction in audiobook form because I find that it helps me get through it. So if you're curious to check out Behave, you can go to audible.com/lavender or text lavender to 500 500 and start your 30-day free trial. So thank you, Audible, so much for sponsoring tonight's video, and let's get right to it. Hi guys, I hope that you are doing well. I am doing well because I am very excited to be shooting this video because it has been a very long time in the making, probably about 3 months. But basically, I am going to be talking about or my subscribers' favorite books. So I made a community post about 3 months ago or so, asking you guys what your favorite books were, and I took the top 5 most liked books, and I bought them, though I did own 1 or 2 already. And so I'm going to be talking about them today. So go ahead and make yourself comfortable. And we can get right to it. And I look really tired because it is 5 in the morning most people who read it say that it is a very sad book. It's also required reading sometimes in high school, which would maybe classify it as a classic. I believe it was written in the 50s or 60s, and it definitely has that feel to it. It doesn't feel like super modern writing. It feels like it was written in the 60s or so, but it is a very easy read. So if you are intimidated by classics that have hard language, this is a very good book to kind of ease into that. It is written in journal format, so the protagonist writes down journal entries, and that is the entire book. So let me go ahead and read you the back. It was written by Daniel Keyes. And this is an ASMR video, so I will be tapping and page turning. So I don't think I actually cried during this book, but I came very close. But let me read the back. Okay. Charlie Gordon is about to embark upon an unprecedented journey. Born with an unusually low IQ, he has been chosen as the perfect subject for an experimental surgery that researchers hope will increase his intelligence. A procedure that has already been highly successful when tested on a lab mouse named Algernon. As the treatment takes effect, Charlie's intelligence expands until it surpasses that of the doctors who engineered his metamorphosis. The experiment appears to be a scientific breakthrough of paramount importance until Algernon suddenly deteriorates. Will the same happen to Charlie? It was the winner of the Hugo Award and the Nebula Award, and it inspired an Academy Award-winning movie called Charlie, which I have not seen. But I have seen the Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode called Flowers for Charlie, which is based on this book. So, this isn't really a spoiler, but basically, because it's in journal format, the book starts off being written in Charlie's voice, where he misspells things. He has bad grammar, and as his intelligence increases, the writing becomes more eloquent. So that's kind of fun to read. And the main plot point of the book, besides it being suspenseful about whether the experiment will last or not, it's more like Charlie's emotional intelligence doesn't grow as fast as his intellectual intelligence. So he really struggles with relationships with people, and I found that the most interesting part of the book, honestly. Like, I was very concerned that he would become evil with his intelligence because he remembers how people treated him when he had a very low IQ. Also, I was gonna research if mentally handicapped or mentally disabled is the correct terminology, because I really would like to use the correct terminology, but I think if you have somebody in your life who is mentally handicapped, or somebody you've encountered in your life and were close to, this book will wreck you. The author was very obviously passionate about bringing awareness, especially in the 50s or 60s, to the fact that even extremely mentally handicapped people are just as human as mentally neurotypical people are. And Charlie emphasizes that throughout the book, that he was a human before the experiment, because people don't really act like it in the book. I'm gonna do some page turning. And in an effort to avoid spoilers, I will not be reading from the book. So yeah, I really liked it. I think it would have hit me harder if I did have somebody mentally handicapped in my life, which I don't, so I didn't cry, but the ending was very sad. It's technically a sci-fi novel, and so it had some elements to it that were really cheesy, in my opinion. And so, that also could be a product of it just being kind of an older book. Like, the dated writing made it feel a little cheesier. And the female characters were, like, you know, a little off. Once again, I think because it's an older book. But I really did enjoy it, and it was very sad. But yeah, I recommend it. I'd give it like a 3.8 out of 5, maybe a 4 out of 5. I think you'll enjoy it more if you read it really quickly, which I did. Because it kind of hits you really hard. And it has, because it's a sci-fi book and you can read it kind of quickly, it almost feels like a movie, which is why I think it adapted into a movie so well. Okay, let's talk about the next book. The next book is The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak, or Zuzak. Once again, I think this is a book that became a movie. I'm almost positive it's a movie. These aren't in any particular order, by the way. I really had no idea what to expect from this book. I knew it was about the Holocaust, or it took place during the Holocaust, but I didn't really know much other than that. And I don't know if this technically qualifies as young adult or not, because the protagonist is a young girl, and it has a lot of coming of age themes, which are popular in young adult books. Okay, so the thing about this book is that it is kind of creatively written. It's a little more experimental than a normal book, and it is told from the perspective of death. So death is personified, and he is kind of narrating the story. Sometimes his voice is stronger than others, and his voice is very unique. When death has a story to tell, you listen. Okay, so let me read you the cover, and I'm sorry for all the German names I mispronounce. It is 1939, Nazi Germany. The country is holding its breath. Death has never been busier and will become busier still. Liesel Meminger finds her life changed when she unearths a single object from the snow. It is the Gravedigger's Handbook, her first act of book thievery. But these are dangerous times. When Liesel's foster family hides a Jewish man in their basement, Liesel's world is both opened up and closed down. In a superbly crafted prose that burns with intensity, award-winning author Marcus Zusak has given us one of the most enduring stories of our time. I feel like I'm mispronouncing a lot of things, but I'm tired, so forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. Okay. Book. So it says here that it spent 10 years on the New York Times bestseller list. It was the winner of the National Jewish Book Award and an international bestseller. Another fun thing is that it has drawings in it. Let me see if I can find one. There we go. I also spilled water on it because I took it to the beach. But you can see that it has drawings and it's like pretty creative with its paragraph breaks and with like the comments from Death. So the fun thing about this book, I think, is that Death has a very interesting perspective. He really likes humans, but he's frustrated, obviously, by their tendency to kill each other. So I did really like this book. I will admit that sometimes the more creative writing fell flat for me, and sometimes I liked it a lot, which is kind of how it goes with more experimental books, you know. Can you guys hear the wind outside? It's kind of intense today. Anyways, I will say that Liesel didn't have a ton of personality, but she was a good protagonist because things, you know, she reacted well to things happening around her. She's also very traumatized, so a little understandable for the way she acts. I loved the father character. He reminded me a lot of Atticus and Scout. Like, their relationship was similar in that the father was kind of a moral guide for the girl. I did cry at this book. I don't remember which part, but I think you would really like this book if you enjoy reading books about the Holocaust and World War II. You know, it's a very important and tragic moment in our history, and so a lot of people do like reading about it. I thought it was interesting that the family and the girl were not Jewish, they were German. And I feel like a lot of media I read or consume about the Holocaust takes place from the point of view of a Jewish person. So I would give this like a 4 out of 5. I really like experimental writing in books. in this was very unique. Like, he acted very human-like. He had a lot of opinions, but he wasn't emotionless or solemn. And so I thought that was interesting. But I also thought it was kind of strange sometimes that, you know, an omnipresent being would have, you know, very black and white, or not black and white, but like very human emotions. But you know, it was an interesting choice, and so I respect that. It did take me a while to get through. I wouldn't say the book is action-packed or anything like that, so if you are prepared to kind of take your time with the book, I think this would be a good choice. Okay. So the next book is Circe by Madeline Miller. Okay, guys, I loved this book. I had already read it before I asked what your favorite books were. And that's partially because I am a huge geek about Greek mythology. I took a college level class in college, even though my major was engineering, and so I just took it, you know, for fun. It was actually very hard, surprisingly. It wasn't like a joke class. And so I learned a ton about Greek mythology, and so I just have a lot of fun with books that involve it. You know, I loved Percy Jackson as a kid. And I also loved The Song of Achilles by her. I talk about that book in my favorite books video. Okay. So this book is it's not a retelling, it's a pretty true to story or true to myth fiction novel about Circe, who is a witch in Greek mythology. If you remember the story from the Odyssey, when Odysseus goes to the island and there's a witch named Circe who turns his men into animals, and he ends up staying with Circe for a while. If you had to read that in high school, maybe you remember it, but this book is from the point of view of Circe. Let me read you the cover. In the house of Helios, god of the sun and the mightiest of the Titans, a daughter is born. But Circe is a strange child, not obviously powerful like her father, nor viciously alluring like her mother. Turning to the world of mortals for companionship, she discovers that she does possess power, the power of witchcraft, which can transform rivals into monsters and menace the gods themselves. Threatened, Zeus banishes her to a deserted island, where she hones her occult craft, tames wild beasts, and crosses paths with many of the most famous figures in all of mythology, including the Minotaur, Daedalus and his doomed son, Icarus. I said that wrong. The murderous Medea, and of course, wily Odysseus. But there is danger too for a woman who stands alone, and Circe unwittingly draws the wrath of both men and gods, ultimately finding herself pitted against one of the most terrifying and vengeful of the Olympians. To protect what she loves most, Circe must summon all of her strength and choose once and for all whether she belongs with the gods she is born from or the mortals she has come to love. With unforgettably vivid characters, mesmerizing language, and page-turning suspense, Circe is a triumph of storytelling, an intoxicating epic of family rivalry, palace intrigue, love, and loss, as well as a celebration of the indomitable female strength in a man's world. I knew I would love this book, and that's why I bought it in hardcover right away. It's really beautiful on the inside too, and the cover is so nice. And the pages have that old-timey ruffled effect. So I knew I would love this book because I love her writing so much. I think she has the most beautiful prose. This book isn't as much of a romance as The Song of Achilles. It's more a true novel, if that makes sense. Song of Achilles was more like a quick, passionate love story, and this is more like a true to form novel. I don't know if I'm saying what I want to say correctly, but I think she really, you can see almost an improvement in her writing, even though I think the prose in The Song of Achilles was a little more poetic. I really loved Circe as a character. I loved the writing. I loved the action scenes, and the plot, how it progresses, is pretty true to the myth. So it's kind of like a series of events that are kind of very different from each other, happening over and over, rather than kind of like something building up to a peak. Does that make sense? I'm gonna do some page turning. I would give this book like a 4.5 or higher, maybe, out of 5. And of course, you know, every rating I'm giving these books is just my own personal opinion. Everybody likes a book for different reasons, and it impacts them differently at different stages in their life. So, just prefacing that. So yeah, I very much enjoyed this book. It is one of my top like 30 favorite books probably. No, that's almost too harsh. Like top 20 favorite books. And that's only because I've read a ton of books. If you like Greek mythology and you're interested in like looking at it from a different angle, from the perspective of a character that isn't given perspective a lot of the time, highly recommend. Highly, 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 highly recommend. My stomach's starting to growl. Oh, that's the problem with waking up early to try to shoot videos, is that it's too early to eat breakfast, but I film long enough that I start getting hungry. I might go take a break and eat something. We will see. There it goes again. Anyways. The next book is The Giver by Lewis Lowry. It is a very quick read. It is very solidly young adult. I think a lot of people read it in middle school or maybe high school, which I did. And I had read it so long ago that when this won, I decided to buy it and reread it. So this was very curious how I would like it as an adult. It's obviously very highly awarded. It's a classic. How I would describe it is a shorter, condensed version of the same themes as Brave New World, which is the importance of human pain, how you need pain to contrast, the good things in life, and if you try to remove all pain, you are kind of left with an empty life. And so this book is a very quick read, and it talks about those very important themes. Let me read you the back. Life in the community where Jonas lives is idyllic. Designated birth mothers produce new children who are assigned to appropriate family units, one male, one female to each. Citizens are assigned their partners and their jobs. No one thinks to ask questions. Everyone obeys. The community is a precisely choreographed world without conflict, inequality, divorce, unemployment, injustice, or choice. Everyone is the same, except Jonas. At the ceremony of 12, the community's 12-year-olds eagerly accept their predetermined life assignments. But Jonas is chosen for something special. He begins instruction in his life's work with the mysterious old man, known only as the Giver. Gradually, Jonas learns that power lies in feelings. But when his own power is put to the test, when he must try to save someone he loves, he may not be ready. Is it too soon or too late? So, I would give this book a 4 out of 5. The ending is very ambiguous, which sometimes works, and sometimes I personally don't like it, and this was one of the cases where I didn't really like the ending. It was very symbolic, but I was kind of left feeling like it was half a story, which is probably partially due to the length because it's so small. I read this in one day, so if you're curious to reread it or read it again read it for the first time, you can read it pretty quickly, like definitely less than a week. And the text is very big. So, even though the protagonist is a young adult, a child, it's not so much about him growing up. It's more about him living in this dystopian society, and learning what is important about life. I think it exposes young adults to this concept very well, especially because Brave New World is pretty heavy. But, I love Brave New World, and I think it's something really worth talking about because it's a trap that I fall into where I wish there was no pain in the world. I wish there was no suffering. But you need pain and you need suffering, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to say that suffering is good. It's not. But there will always be suffering, and developing a good relationship with that concept, I think, is healthy. I will say that my only flaw, or my major flaw with this book, is that no character outside of Jonas and the Giver was extremely developed, and so I kind of had a problem with that. I wish they would have talked more about his friends and his parents once again, it was a very short book, so you can only fit so much content in. But I still think the author could have done a little better with that. Alright, so let me rate it. Did I already rate it? Yeah, another 4 out of 5. It's hard to rate this because reading it as an adult who has read a lot of books, it's hard to give a true opinion of it because I don't read a whole lot of young adult fiction these days. So, but I think for what it is, a definite strong 4 out of 5. We have just one more book, and it is a big one. Okay. I am drinking tea. My mouth has been very dry for like a week now. It's the weirdest thing, and it's also like a problem that only is bothering me because of my job, which is whispering. So my mouth is like very dry and I don't know how to fix it. So excuse me if my whisper is kind of like mouth soundsy, though some people may like that. So I'm drinking tea every once in a while to try to rehydrate my mouth. It feels like I'm a voice actor or something, or I should do vocal warm-ups or something. Okay. So I have a very big book here with gold pages, which is so pretty. And the book itself is the complete novels of Jane Austen. And it is so pretty. It's perfect for a bookshelf. I did a video for my Patreon where I read from this book and kind of talked about this book because, you know, look at it, it's so pretty. But drum roll, please, for which Jane Austen novel won my little question contest thing. Of course, it was Pride and Prejudice. Now, I had already read Pride and Prejudice, and I love it. I'm a sucker for it. I don't know. I'm not always the biggest fan of historical books that take place in like England 200 years ago, but something about Pride and Prejudice affects my girly heart or something. But yeah, I 100% understand people who don't like it though. Like, if that makes sense. Like, if you maybe have a book you're like, I love, but I know why people don't like it or think it's boring. Like, I would give Pride and Prejudice, yeah, like a 4.5 out of 5. I've watched the movie, I've watched the one with Keira Knightley, and I've seen the BBC miniseries with Colin Firth, I think. And I like the BBC one. Well, I love both of them for different reasons. The BBC one was nice because Elizabeth Bennet, who is the protagonist, is supposed to be not that beautiful, and not that young, but Keira Knightley is like so beautiful and so young in that movie. So, but anyways, that's not what I'm here to talk about. So yeah, it's a classic. It 1800s England, but I cannot remember the time period, the name of it. It starts with an R. I'll put it as text here when I edit this video, but you know, it's like long dramatic strolls across English moors and romance and family drama. I don't know. I don't think there's a description in the book, so let me find one online really quick. Here's the Wikipedia article. Pride and Prejudice is an 1813 novel of manners written by Jane Austen. The novel follows the character development of Elizabeth Bennet, the dynamic protagonist of the book. Alright, here's the plot. Mr. Bennet, owner of the Longbourn estate in Hertfordshire, has 5 daughters, but his property is entailed and can only be passed to a male heir. His wife also lacks an inheritance, so his family faces becoming very poor upon his death. Thus, it is imperative that at least one of the girls marries well to support the others, which is a motivation that drives the plot. Pride and Prejudice has consistently appeared near the top of lists of most loved books. So yeah, it's, you know, family drama, romance. I think it's kind of a must-read for anybody into classic literature. But once again, I totally understand not being interested in the plot of, like, upper class English society and, like, a romance and family drama. So even though I love it, I get it. Yeah, if you don't feel like reading the book, that BBC miniseries is very good. I don't know even if there's much more to say. I love Elizabeth Bennet, of course. I have a crush on Mr. Darcy. I just feel like a total fangirl when I talk about Pride and Prejudice. Sometimes Pride and Prejudice makes me think about Wuthering Heights. And I read Wuthering Heights in high school and I hated it. And then I reread it as an adult and I liked it. Once you kind of can separate yourself away from the book and be like, the author's intentionally making this guy a bad guy, like he's not supposed to be seen as sexy. I don't know, because I hated all the characters in Wuthering Heights. What I'm trying to say is, if you didn't like Pride and Prejudice in high school, try rereading it, maybe. It's kind of a big book, but you might find that you appreciate what the author is doing more. Okay, well that's it, guys. Once again, thank you so much if you commented on that post. It was a lot of fun. I might do a part 2 and see if I get different answers, because I'm really curious what my audience's favorite books are. And I also plan on doing another, like, more of my personal favorite books sometime in the future. I really struggle thinking of ideas for book videos because I love making them, because I love reading.